What is going on, everyone? We are here with another episode of the Spotlight series hosted by yours truly, ACK. Y'all know the drill at this point is we're slowly reaching that 100 episode mark. We're just having a blast here, interviewing artists from all genres, from all over the world, and just listening to stories through music. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Just sitting here talking to artists about their journey, talking about music, and just kind of everything that's going on. So today I have Tyler here. Tyler Bryant, how are you today, man?
Man, I'm good, man. Thanks for having me.
No, of course. It always just so cool, and I always just appreciate artists just taking time out of their day to sit here and talk about their story through music. So thank you for sitting here and doing this and talking about your story today.
No problem.
So kind of hopping right into the first question is always the basic of basics, and it really just sets up kind of the whole interview and sets up all the rest of the questions is where did music start for you? Where did singing and playing start? Because I know for some people it starts the day they were born. They start humming nursery rhymes and stuff like that, and then slowly it progresses from there. But I always like to compare it to someone like myself who only started songwriting and producing and all that back in 2018. So that was only 4 or 5 years ago, stuff like that. So where did singing and playing and everything kind of come about for you?
Well, I mean, almost kind of like you. I played in band. I played the clarinet in band when I was in elementary school, but music wasn't anything that was sort of in the forefront for me because there's really no one in my family who was like very musical or did anything. So it wasn't anything I really thought about, but I did have like a natural sort of ability with music. And so I want to say 2013, my poppy and my brothers, we took a road trip we were headed to DC, but we went through Nashville,
Mhm.
and it was right during CMA Fest. And so we did all the touristy things. We went and saw the Ryman and all that. And so I think at that moment, that was in 2013. At that moment, I don't know, something happened. I wasn't listening to country music then. I wasn't even thinking about music. I was in college at the time. I was not like worried about anything, just trying to
Yeah.
get through school. And there was something about that trip and being in Nashville that sort of like stuck with me. So about 3 years later, I picked up the guitar, which I had a guitar, but I never really learned to play. I kind of like piddled around with it for a long time.
Right.
I guess at that point I kind of got serious and started playing the guitar and found out I could sing. So I was like, "Hey, look at that! This is this could work."
No, and that's super cool. I mean, I actually just went down for the first time to Nashville a couple weeks ago, back in like the first week in October, and it's such a different experience when you go down there, especially when you're in the music industry, whether you're a singer or songwriter, producer, whatever. It really just connects with you and just hits you different and really just makes you think about music more and just draws you into that whole thing. So that's always cool to kind of hear people's upbringing and how they really started with the music and what really brought them into the whole singing and songwriting process. Uh,
Yes, it's different for everybody, but I guess my some people were like, "Man, I've been doing this since I was 5. I knew," and I was like, "Man, I wish I would have known when I was 5."
yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I was always just jotting things down when I was in high school and like as a kid and stuff like that, but it didn't really take the whole songwriting process seriously until about 2018 is when I would start going through some stuff. A lot of people knew that I lost my grandfather in 2018, and that's how I wrote my first ever song, back to when, which a lot of my people know and fans and stuff like that. That's really what got me into the whole music thing. And I've always loved country music, especially, and obviously that's kind of your genre, and that's why I always love country artists hopping on here. And leads into the next question is talking about some inspirations because I grew up on that 90s, early 2000s kind of country music with like I mean Travis Tritt, Tim McGraw was big and stuff like that. But I always like to say is Chris Daughtry, rock and roll artist, one of my all-time favorite artists, easily, hands down. And then obviously getting to today, Luke Combs, Morgan Wallen, all that fun stuff. And we can sit here for hours and talk about this, but who are some inspirations that you kind of really look up to in the music business when it comes to songwriting and when it comes to singing, just to kind of that really gives you that inspiration?
So when I first got, I guess, sort of immersed in country music was 2013, and so that was like the bro country era.
Yeah.
And so you had your Cole Swindell, Florida Georgia Line was moving up the charts, and so that's sort of when I got introduced to country, and I was like, oh, there's something. I was like, I wasn't really feeling it really, but I was like, it's all right. But that sort of encouraged me to dig a little deeper into country, like what's really going on with this genre, and so you start kind of at square one. So I mean, I started listening to like George Jones, all these older classic guys, and I really fell in love with Jim Reeves. I think he has a very beautiful baritone voice. Um, as far as songwriting, because you learn that songwriting is a big deal in country music.
Yeah.
And so the storytelling and stuff like that. I'm a big fan of Chris Christopherson's songwriting.
Okay.
Feel like I take a lot of like his techniques and like his sort of style of writing. Because to me, I mean, he made country music sexy,
Yeah.
right? It opened that sort of mainstream sexiness about country music. And so I definitely fell in love with that. So as far as songwriting, you know, Chris Christopherson's a big, kind of big on my list. And I feel like maybe, you know, there's some other great songwriters, but I feel like if I had to pick one, it'd probably be Chris Christopherson. Now, as far as singing vocally, it had to be Chris Young. Chris Young, like, man, I heard that guy and I'm like, dude, this is like, if I would sing country music, this is what I want to sound like. This guy, right here. He is the epitome of what I think country music should sound like. So that's definitely my two inspirations.
Yeah, no, and I mean that's awesome. I literally as much as I love Chris Young, I always forget about him. And like I was literally just listening to him like 2 hours ago, like jamming out to all of his songs. I was just listening to Drowning, and it was just that guy is unbelievable. But like it's so cool to hear who people kind of look up to and stuff like that. And obviously, like I said, you could sit here for hours and talk about inspirations. And it gets to the storytelling aspect is really what I look toward in an artist and kind of how they go about writing a song. And that's leading into the third question. And always one of my favorites to ask is what your creative process is like. Because I always have to quote Garrett Walker, who was on the show. Y'all go check him out. Super, super talented artist. But he said the songwriting process is like a puzzle, whether you have a 200-piece puzzle, a 500-piece puzzle, whatever, you have it kind of all scattered on the table and you figure out slowly where all these pieces fit, and you eventually start putting the border together, you start putting the middle together and be like, okay, like this is how everything kind of fits together. And by the end, you have this full song, you have this full masterpiece that you can share with other people and be like, hey, look what I just created. And obviously, you know, as a songwriter, there is no rhyme or reason to the songwriting process, but what is your creative process like when it comes to writing music?
I guess I could really get like minute about it, but I think like just on the surface level, I guess there's two different processes. Like if I'm writing a song myself, typically my process is I'm gonna put on a surf movie and drink orange juice. I don't know why I do that, but I do. It helps. I usually the notes app in my phone is like the holy grail for me. Like I could lose every photo and everything, but if I lost the notes app in my phone, I would be devastated. So I mean, I'm constantly jotting stuff down. Maybe I heard somebody say something. Maybe I said something. Maybe there's like this sort of concept or something. So I'll kind of write it down and kind of give a general idea, make a little voice memo of what I'm thinking at the time. And I typically don't like immediately write it. I'll just kind of let it sit for a while. And then maybe something else will happen that'll be like, oh, you know what? That's the piece that I was missing. I can write the song now. A lot of times I'll have hooks in my phone and I'll figure out, so typically I'll start with the hook and I'll figure out a way to sing it. And then once I figure out a way to sing it, I'm like, well, how does that make me feel? And then that's when I take to the internet to see, has anybody written a song with this title before? Has anybody done this before?
Yeah.
Sometimes they have, and I'm like, I'll just take a different spin on it. Sometimes they haven't. I'm like, I'm gonna run with it. And so that's sort of my process. Sometimes I can write a song in a day. Sometimes it'll take weeks, you know, because it's like, I feel like once I get to the point to where I feel like I'm forcing it, it's like, I'm just gonna hang it up and then come back when it's just ready to be told. So a lot of that, for me, it's a lot of waiting, but in Nashville, you do a lot of co-writing. Yes. So that process is very different. It's usually, I got ideas in my phone and you show up to the room with whoever you're writing with. And usually you shoot the, BS around for about an hour or so talking about the day. And maybe you may say something or come across something like, hey, we should write that. And if not, it's like, hey, anybody got anything? And so you throw ideas around the room and see which one sticks. And it's like, all right, let's roll with it. And so usually it's something everybody can kind of mesh with and you just kind of go with it.
Yeah, no, and it's always just cool to ask that question because as a songwriter myself, I always just love hearing is what people's creative process is, because sometimes a lot of artists start with a melody and then they work on the lyrics from there. And then people like myself, I'm a lyricist at heart, if I can even speak today, but I love writing before I even try to think of a melody, just writing songs and stuff like that. I mean, the first ever song I wrote about my grandfather, I wrote that in maybe an hour and a half. And then from there, it just really started developing more and really started getting into stuff. And obviously notes and voice memos and all that fun stuff is, if I, like you just said, like you said it perfectly, if you lose all your photos and videos, I don't care. But those voice memos and those notes, those things are literally the holy grail and you need those.
Right.
So getting to the fourth question is always the most difficult one on the show, and people always freeze up. And that's why I say, thank God I'm the one asking the questions and not answering. So I'm going to put you on the spot here. Is there are so many artists out there, whether you're in country music, rap music, pop, R&B, soul, whatever. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, Apple Music, all that stuff. People are putting their music out there and creating a name for themselves. And it's hard to just get your own singular name out there sometimes and say, hey, this is me, this is who I am. So my question for you is, what makes you you compared to all these other artists out there? And what makes Tyler Bryant Tyler Bryant?
I think what makes me is my story, and sort of what I bring to the genre. And it kind of goes, you know, stereotypically, when you think of country music, you think of, you know, white male artists. And so for years, decades, you've been listening to this sort of white male artist perspective on whatever's going on, you know? And so, and that, you know, it's a predominantly, you know, sort of white genre. And so you get a lot of that. And so, what makes me is I'm going to tell a story. I'm going to tell my stories, and it's going to sound a little different. It's going to look a little different. And it's going to reach a different demographic of people. And I think, you know, as kind of the world is shifting, I think that's important, especially with the sort of stereotype that country music has. I think that there's people out there who have a lot more to offer to the genre, and a lot different perspective, and a lot of people, new audiences that they can bring into the genre that'll overall help it, you know, regardless. So kind of what makes me is my perspective and like my message to, I guess, the world, I guess you would say, you know, through my music.
Yeah, no, and that's awesome, man. I mean, I listened to a lot of your music kind of leading up to the interview over the last like week or two, and just your storytelling and just your picture that you bring to your songs and stuff like that is just, it's truly special. And I love all the songs that you have out, all the singles and the EP that you got. And obviously I just can't wait for more things to come for you. And that's kind of, I'm just going to jump right into the last question, because I'm kind of looking forward to this, is what are some of your short-term and long-term goals, and just kind of what else can we expect down the road from you?
Short term, so I want to say 2018. Yeah, either 2017, 2018, I put out a song, Plan for Keeps. And then I went a couple years without putting any music out. And then I came back in 2020 or 2021, something like that, with my current single now. And then I just dropped the EP a couple of weeks ago. And so I kind of felt like I took a couple of years off, just kind of dealing with life and sort of dealing with just the music industry is an animal. So it really weighs on you. You know, I had to get some therapy and kind of get my mind right and sort of set goals for myself. So, you know, in the short term, I'm looking to just put out more music because I feel like, you know, I got 2 years to kind of catch up on and get more content out there. And a lot of people were like, hey, are you still doing music and stuff like that? And I'm like, yeah, I'm just kind of working through some things right now. So, so that, you know, in the short term, you know, of course that I'm always looking to sort of, you know, take my music to the next level, whatever that looks like, whether that's publishing deal, record deal, you know, whatever that looks like. You know, I've been pretty fortunate to have a pretty roller coaster every year. This year, I'm actually in Los Angeles right now.
Okay.
I played the Troubadour last night for the Black Opera Review. And so pretty busy on the road. So really just taking it a step at a time. I'm a very goal-driven person. And so when I don't hit those goals, I really like beat myself up about it and get down about it. So that's something that I'm kind of working on, just at least setting goals for myself. So I have a vision, and, you know, failure is subjective. So you may not achieve what you thought you wanted to, but there may have been something else lining the wings that maybe you got. So
no, exactly. And that's awesome, man. And like I said, I'm definitely a huge fan of what you're doing and all the songs that you have out. And I just can't wait to see what else comes for you, because I'm on the ride with you, and I'm just looking forward to some big things from you.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
No, of course. So that kind of concludes all the questions that I got for you today. So now time for the fun part of the interview. Always my favorite part is hearing a live song from you. I think you said earlier when we were talking, you're going to do Stay Wild, right?
Yeah, I'm going to do Stay Wild. It's my current single right now for the time being. I think we're going to be pushing a new single next year. And so I'm just going to, you know, let this song kind of keep going. I had, you know, pretty high aspirations for it, and I didn't really hit the mark with it. And that's another one of those things I was talking about. But I still think it's a great song, and I still believe in it, and I'm going to continue to push it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I mean, other than that, man, the floor is yours, and let's listen to Stay Wild.
All right. This one's called Stay Wild. Hope you guys like it. chasing after number 3, even if it's on a dirt track and BFE. Stay wild. I hope you always speed through one light towns. Find a stranger at the bar one more round. Never let the 9 to 5 tie you down. No. Stay wild, wild like the waves on the Outer Banks. Wild like an overtime on team game. Wild like a midnight runaway train. Stay wild, wild like a Smoky Mountain road trip summer. Wild like an airband rock and roll drum. Wild like a buffalo bringing that fun. Stay wild, stay wild. Woo. Stay wild, stay wild. I hope you're not to settle on a cheap seat kind. Hope you're in the front row, lighter on fire. Hope you never get it back home on time. No, stay wild, wild like the waves on the Outer Banks. Wild like an overtime on team game. Wild like a midnight runaway train. Stay wild, wild like a Smoky Mountain road trip summer. Wild like an airband rock and roll drum. Wild like a buffalo bringing that fun. Stay wild, stay wild. Stay wild, stay wild. Wild like the waves on the Outer Banks. Wild like an overtime on team game. Wild like a midnight runaway train. Stay wild, wild like a Smoky Mountain road trip summer. Wild like an airband rock and roll drum. Wild like a buffalo bringing that fun. Stay wild, wild like the waves on the Outer Banks. Wild like an overtime on team game. Wild like a midnight runaway train. Stay wild, wild like a Smoky Mountain road trip summer. Wild like an airband rock and roll drum. Wild like a buffalo bringing that fun. Yeah. Stay wild, stay wild. Stay wild, stay wild.
I mean, it's always my favorite part of the interview because I get to put myself on mute and people can't hear me jamming out, because if I start singing, glass will start breaking and all that stuff.
Yeah,
but
I saw you jamming, man.
but man, I was just jamming there, and I love that song. I love what you're doing. You're just a super talented singer, super talented songwriter, and thank you for that.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Of course. So kind of before I do my little outro here, kind of ending the interview, is where can we find you on social medias? Obviously, I know you got music out on Spotify, Apple Music, and stuff like that, but what are some of your handles so people can go check you out?
You can find me on Twitter at Tyler Bryant, Tyler Bryant Music on Instagram. That's Tyler with an A, Tylar, because if you spell it with an E, that ain't me. TylerBryant.com, see where I'm touring, where I'm going to be in the world. I'm also kind of on TikTok. I'm not a big social media guy. If I wasn't a musician, I wouldn't be on there. And so me and my team, we work very hard to get me to post things on social media. So, but you can find me there, follow me there. I usually, if I'm doing shows and stuff, I'll definitely have that stuff posted for sure.
Yeah, no, awesome, man. I mean, I'll be posting links too, so people can go check out that link and go right to everything from there. But Tyler, again, thank you, man, so much for just coming on, talking about your story through music and just talking about music in general today.
Man, thank you so much for having me, man. I really enjoyed this. It's great.
No, of course. So that kind of concludes another episode of the Spotlight series hosted by yours truly, ACK. Y'all know the drill at this point. Sundays, 1 p.m. Eastern. You can check out all interviews, Facebook, YouTube, wherever. You never know who's going to be on here, never know what we're going to be listening to, and never know what kind of stories you're going to hear. So stay tuned for next week, and thanks for tuning in this week.